Hello, my beautiful friends. This is an instructional video today. Some folks have asked, how do you read runestones? Because there's lots of videos on how to read tarot cards and even oracle cards, but not a lot of videos on practical ways to read runes. And I want to be the mother tree and give information so that you can do this for yourself, because the meaning really comes from your reflection. So let's start with some preliminary statements that I always say. If you would come to me for a reading and you'd be sitting across from me, this is what I would tell you. Runestones are an alphabet, just like our ABCs, right? It's an alphabet, and it was created as an alphabet. It was created to make what, today we would call a headstone or a memorial, right? It was written, it's carved in stone, and there's a certain way that you read them. And the letters themselves had no meaning, divination meaning, just like our alphabet doesn't have divination meaning. Divination in runestones is probably about 400 years old when people started using them for divination, but they weren't inherently created for that. So that's important to know. And I'm gonna link fellow Jackson below. He is an expert in runestones and this sort of thing. He's a bit arrogant, so you have to kind of sort through that, but the information is really good. So in that mother tree spirit, like, he really does, he doesn't believe at all in divination, so keep that in mind. It's very much the knowledge of it, the knowledge of the stones and the history of the stones and how they were read and where you can find them. So I will link that below. But divination tools are true to all kinds of practices, religious practices, spiritual practices, and cards, tarot, whatever it is you use. They are ways for you to connect with spirit, but really the only thing that you ever need is you. My friend Hestia, who I talk about a lot on this channel, she always says this thing at the end of her videos, you are all that you need. You are all the magic that you need. And that is absolutely the truth. The only thing that you need in any religious or spiritual practice is yourself, your spirit, and you can talk to the other world. Divination tools are meant to, help bring clarity and help focus your energy onto receiving messages and downloads that are meaningful to you in that space and time. So I don't think that any divination tool can predict the future, whether it's tarot or runestones or pendulums or anything. I don't think divination tools can predict the future because we have free will. So when I pull runes, I'm not trying to figure out my future. I'm trying to think about what I need to think about right now. And some people will call that higher self or higher power. I'm Christian, so God and Jesus, right? Or Mother Mary or whomever, connecting to my archangels or my angels and my spirit guides, Adam and Seth. You know who you are communicating with, and it could just be your inner self, and that's fine. Whatever it is fine. But whatever stones you pull and whatever comes to mind is what you should think about for that day. So we're not predicting the future. Divination tools are just tools. They're ways for us to explore our spirituality. They don't replace, the core thing that we need, which is our willingness to open our hearts and minds to spirit and to thinking about how to make the world better for light and love, right? So we start with that. Now, I read runestones over cards. I do use cards with runestones, oracle cards. I don't read tarot. I'm not opposed to tarot. It's not my tradition, and I don't know much about it. I have a few decks. I just they don't ever resonate with me. I mostly rely on what I understand to be Celtic spiritual tools, because I'm Celtic, and that's an important part of my ancestral journey and a very big part of who I am as a person. And there's no right or wrong. I mean, if you connect with your Nordic ancestry or your Jewish ancestry or your indigenous person and ancestry, like whatever it is that connects you across the veil with your ancestors, it's all good. There's no right or wrong. There's no prescription. I sometimes watch YouTube videos and you have to do it this way. No, you don't. You're a grown adult. You can do it any way you want, right? Whatever brings you meaning. And you can change it over time. You don't have to stick to something. If you follow the channel, I used to be very religious. I was going to be an Anglican nun. And the church is very prescribed on how things go, right? And there's some comfort in that. There's meaning in that for some people, and there certainly was meaning for me at the time. I've grown away from that. because I think those are all man-made rituals, and specifically man-made rituals, and they'd stop bringing me meaning because I thought they took me away from the work of Jesus Christ, who I thought was on earth to, that I believe was on earth to do good and to, clothe the poor and feed the poor and help widows and orphans and spread light and love. When we look at the work of Jesus, we look at the work of light and love and all this other stuff, all the hatred and discontent and discord that happens because humans get involved and mess up the message. So I'm on a path as the mother tree to, to eliminate that negativity and to bring back the light and love in the teachings of Jesus and in the teachings of other world leaders who brought light and love, Gandhi and etc. So what do we do? How do we read runes? What do they mean? You can get your runes anywhere. You can make them. You can go outside and get rocks. There are different alphabets. I use the Elder Futhark alphabet. There is a modern Futhark alphabet. There's a witch's runes set. Like, you decide which alphabet means the most to you. I use the Elder Futhark. I have all different kinds of stones. I've made my own stones. This particular set that I'm using now, I got in Scotland when I was there, and they go with me. They go with me where I go. And you can do different kinds of readings, and we'll talk about that in a brief minute. You don't have to do this every time, but I do like to use sage to just bless them and put myself in this space of reading and reflection. So I have candles. I have all different candles. I use a lot of different candles. These are ones that I got from different boxes that I've received, and I'm also a bit of an Etsy junkie. So I light the candles so that I can set my space. And I just ask Spirit and my ancestors, the angels and archangels, Jesus and Mary, to come into my space, to all the ancestors that want a seat at my table and to be in my presence, to have me recognize them. So I light the candles as a way, and we do that in church, right? I don't know about other traditions like Judaism and things like that, but I know in Anglican church, the service starts with the altar. Back when I went to church, I went to a very conservative church, so they were altar boys, but I know that boys and girls both do it now. I wasn't allowed at my church, hence one of the reasons I don't go to church anymore. But we light the candles to set the space, and now we're in our space. Now you can have music, or you don't have to have music. I do like to have music when I'm going, and I always pick ambient music. Tim Janis is a favorite. There's a thing called Melodies Heal. I like them as well. So I'm going to turn that on. And then I'll sit and I'll just listen to the music for a little bit, just to get sort of in the space, in the zone, in my headspace of where I want to be. Let me turn down the music so you can actually hear me. And I just create this space. And sometimes that can take 2 minutes. Sometimes it takes a little longer because I've just had a day, right? And I do deep meditative breathing just to get myself centered and in the space. And then I'm going to do this work. And then I use a smudge stick. And I don't do this every time, but I'll pass my runes through it. I'll pass the cards through it. But even just the scent, the cedar and the Palo Santo, if you're using that, or whatever you're using, incense, like it just, I'm listening to the music, I'm seeing the candles, I'm smelling, I'm engaging my senses to do this kind of work. And sometimes you don't have time for this, right? Sometimes you're on the subway heading into, I live near New York City, so sometimes I'm headed into the city and I don't have time for all this. I just need to pull a rune and that's it. That's okay. Okay? Like, this is a luxury. Like, we are privileged to be able to engage at this level. But sometimes we need to get information and something to think about. We don't have time for all this. That's okay. Right? And then you always want to be safe with anything that requires fire. So with your candles and your smudge stick, just be careful. All right. So how do we read runes? Well, if you go on YouTube, there are a million different ways to read runes. Whatever resonates with you. My style is what I do, but it isn't the only way to do it. And I encourage you to explore different options. I do one of three kinds of readings. I do a Celtic cross, I do 3 Norns, Norns, or I do a single pull or a one pull. And I do it for different reasons. If I feel that I want a really complete reading, I'll do a Celtic cross. And my Celtic cross, which I will run through you, first I put the runes in my hands and just ask Spirit to be with me. The angels and archangels, thank you so much for this time, for the privilege of being able to do this. Not everybody in the world has this kind of privilege. And just gratitude and thankfulness to the universe and to Spirit for this time that I can take. So I keep them in my hands, and then I'm asking a specific question, and that, let's see, today's question will be, what do I need to know today? It doesn't have to be an elaborate question, and you can ask anything, what should I do to attract love into my life? What should I do to release anxiety? Whatever your question is. We want to stick away from yes and no questions, will Jerry Butler ever fall in love with me? The answer to that is no, and that's okay. But you want to avoid, yes or no questions, because Spirit really isn't concerned with those sort of mundane things, I think, but also you might be disappointed with the answer. And also these are reflection pieces. So yes and no questions don't give you opportunities for reflection. A better question, if that was your intent, would be to say something like, what would I have to do to attract the love of someone like Jerry Butler into my life? I am an old crone, so I am not worried about that. But I know young people are. All right, so in my rune bag, I keep some other stones that are meaningful to me. And you don't have to do this, but you can if you want. I have a green man wand, but it's so fragile and I'm so afraid of breaking it that I wanted something that I could put in my bag that was green man related. So this is a green man. You can't really see his face. Maybe you can. It's in there. And I keep this with my stones, and just as a reminder of my connection to the natural world. And I, if you follow the channel, I follow a little bit of Druidic practice. I find the modern Druid movement a little frustrating, but I am very connected to the earth, and I believe we as humans are interconnected with plants and animals and other humans, and that we're all light, we're all energy, and we're all connected. And this is just a reminder that the natural world is with me, right? So I have that stone. And then if you follow along in the playbook, you know that I play the bagpipes. Americans are very into their heritage, their ancestry. Mostly, I think, because we aren't here long enough to have our own culture that we can say we say we're proud to be an American, but that isn't you're American and something else. You're Italian American or Irish American or whatever. And so we're very tied to our ancestry. And I have a lot of things in my DNA. I had my DNA tested, and I'm pretty much a mutt. But I'm very tied to my Scottish ancestry. I've went to Scotland to go to the Isle of Iona as a celebration for my 50th birthday to play my bagpipes in the graveyard where Macbeth was buried originally. Macbeth's been moved back to his own neighborhood, but at one time, the 12 Scottish kings were buried there. And so I'm very tied that it's a thin place. Iona is a thin place. It's a 3-mile island in the Inner Hebrides, in the Hebridean Islands system. And it takes an entire day to get there. And it was truly transformational. So I'd spent some time walking the shores, and I brought back this stone, which I liked because I see faces in everything. I know there's a name for that, but I saw a little face in it when I picked it up. But also I like that it was like the white and darkness, the marbled. I have no idea what kind of stone this is, but it just reminded me that we're all connected, no matter what our color, no matter what our makeup, our genetics are. We're all connected, right? And then we come together and we fuse together and we create this beautiful little stone that's been in the ocean for hundreds of years and came to me today. It's like our ancestors, right? It's so it was very special to me to bring this home. I brought other stones home for friends and things like that, but that one I liked for myself. And I also bought one in this store. They have a little store there because I wanted to support the economy of Iona and the people who live there. So these are the stones that they've picked. So it's just a reminder that we are still living in this space, that Iona is still meaningful. Iona's tremendous history. They believe it is where the Druid school was, and St. Columba came and peacefully converted the Druids to Christianity, and then not so peaceful things happened after that. But it's just it's a still place. It's a beautiful place. My husband didn't appreciate it in the same way as I did because he's not spiritual in this way. So I need to go back by myself to do my own reflection. But I did get to do some journaling. I would have liked to have walked the island a little bit more, but the weather wasn't that conducive to that kind of activity when we were there. So I need to go back. And then lastly, this is a stone from Iceland that my boss brought me, and just a reminder that we are surrounded by all sorts of support systems, and my next goal is to go to Iceland, although I have no genetic attachment to it. All right, so now my runes are ready to be read, and you can read in any style. I'm going to do all three just so that you have an idea of what to expect. With the question of what do I need to know now. So for the Celtic cross, and Celtic crosses are read all sorts of different ways. And again, don't get hung up on what's right and wrong. Find a system that works for you and resonates with you, and you do that. This one resonates with me. But it isn't the end all be all. You can adapt this. You can do different ones. All right, so the first stone that you pull is your present energy. Like, what energy am I in? So Spirit, what do I need to know right now about the energy I'm in right now? And when I put my hand in the bag, I kind of feel around for a stone that kind of stands out, that's colder maybe than the others, or warmer, and just feels different. My stones aren't raised, so they're not like Braille. I can't feel the marks. I mean, I can feel the marks on them, but I can't distinguish them. And okay, so present energy is Othala. And there are all kinds of websites, and I'll link one below where you can look at have the alphabet right by you, so you know what these stones mean. Athalo means ancestors and generation, and that's really the energy that I'm in right now, is sharing light and love through ancestral wisdom, as like a mother tree, and that is the energy that I'm in right now, right? And sharing wisdom from across the ages. And if you follow the channel, you know that I work with educational technology. Right now I'm doing a lot with artificial intelligence, AI, ChatGPT, things like that. And the skill that our students are going to need, and that we've always needed, is differentiating between wisdom and knowledge. Right? Knowledge is, knowing that the rune stones, weren't created as a divination system. They were created as an alphabet to communicate information. But wisdom is knowing that we can repurpose things to bring meaning into the world, to bring light and love to others, right? So there's a difference between wisdom and knowledge. And, our ancestors certainly knew that, and we're meant to share that. So if you're looking down at your stones, to the right of the center stone, you're going to pick a rune that represents how you got to this space. Like, what brought you here? What's the path that brought you to this space? And for me, it's humanity. I've always been called to share light and love. When I was going to be a nun, when I was a missionary, I've always been on a path, a spiritual path. And religion and spirituality, to me, can often be confused. They can be joined together. They're not opposites, but religion is a practice in a certain kind of faith system, and spirituality sort of extends beyond that. And it would be ideal for people to have both. I would say that in my lifetime, I've not had both. I've been religious at times, but not spiritual. And now I believe I'm spiritual, not religious. But I do think there's a possibility to be both. I know people who are both. But, it really is up to you what you bring into it. And really the idea is light and love. And I think the church universal, not the Anglican Church or any specific brand of churches, I think we've done a lot of harm in the name of God and in the name of Jesus. And so, to make the world better and brighter, we need to get back to the basics of shedding light and love through service to one another, which I believe is what the life of Jesus was about. In the southern position are things that you cannot control as you approach this. So what I need to know is to focus on my ancestral connections and fostering light and love through the sharing of information freely, through open source sharing of information, not counting the cost. So much spiritual stuff has a price tag on it. And I know people have to live, and I'm very fortunate because I have a good job and I enjoy my job, and I'm able to do my job, which pays my bills and supports my children and whatnot. So I know that people do this as their business and as their work, and aren't able or privileged enough to be able to do this for free. But it bothers me when I see such exorbitant costs connected to spiritual knowledge. Like, I can tell you the secret of the universe, but if you pay me $50, really? Like, that knowledge should be free. And what you should pay for are things that are specific, to you, that you want, like your own personal readings. I've certainly paid for readings from different vendors online and things like that, to varying degrees of success and BS, right? But I just, the mother tree doesn't charge the little trees for the information, right? The mother tree is organizing everybody, getting everybody set up and getting them the information they need, communicating with the fungus, the mushrooms, deciding which trees are, too much for the environment to sustain. They're figuring it all out. They're working community and nurturing one another. And there's no cost in that, right? Right. There's a way to do this kind of work without gouging people for money. And, I don't charge for readings. I also, interestingly enough, don't charge most of the time for bagpipe playing, because I'm at a point in my life where I don't need to make money from it. I did when I was younger. My brother and I had a little business doing funerals and stuff like that. But I'm at the age now where, like, I don't charge for any veterans or first responders at all. I do a donation-based system, and and that money goes out in donations too. So it goes in a jar, which used to be my jar to save up for my McRae McAllen bagpipes. But since my son bought them, that jar money, like, I was just paid for a job, and then that money went out to charity because somebody needed a food card, So if you're able, give when you are able. I grew up poor, so I wasn't always able to give. I was on the receiving end of charity and goodwill and good wishes. And so now it's my turn to pay it forward. So, what in your environment can you not control? So, this is Kinaz. No, this is not Kinaz. This is, what is the name of this? Iwas. I have like brain fart, right? And this looks different on different stones, but this is about strength and commitment and sticking to it, and the need for it to happen. So you can't control the need or the connection that's happening. That connection's there. You can choose not to pay attention to it, but it's there, right? It's there, and it's waiting for you to tap into it. The next stone, which is in the eastern position, which is to the left of that center stone, are things in your environment that you can control. What can you control? Tiwaz, which is, interestingly, I got this morning for my personal read. Tiwaz means leadership. You can control how you lead. You can control the root system, right? You can control where the information goes. And, you have the ability to be a leader in this space, whatever space it is you want to be a leader in. You have that ability. And you can kind of control it, but it, you must be ethical and moral in the delivery and in the leadership. And then the last stone is in the northern position, and that's sort of like, what direction are you going in? Now remember that Rune Stone predict the future, so it isn't predicting your future, but it's, here's a possible outcome, and you decide, do you want this outcome or do you not? Make decisions that move you toward it, or whatever. And I got Nothis, which sounds like not this, and that's kind of what it is. Nothis is necessity, need, but it's also focus. It also means focus and attention. So, even though there's a negative connotation, it's one of the menacing stones. Even though it has that connotation, like what I'm feeling here in this reading is, don't let this become a rut. Don't let your spiritual practice become a rut, which is what happened to me in the church, really. Like the Anglican church, the Anglican service is beautiful. My parents were part of the movement that did not modernize when the Episcopal Church modernized in the U.S. in the early 1970s. They were part of the continuing church, or the Anglican, the classical Anglican church. And there's a lot of comfort in that 1923 Book of Common Prayer. You get familiar with the tone. Even today, even though I've been away from the church for about 10 years, I can still recite the entire service by heart. And, there's comfort in that, because the words are comforting, they're biblically based. There's a lot of comfort in that, but it isn't you talking specifically to God. You can, but really it's somebody else's words that have been written down for you. So you can get into a rut. And I think this is just a reminder from Spirit to keep it fresh and to keep it here and real. Now, what I do is when I read, I pause the recorder, and I go and I consider the stones. I think about them. I let Spirit speak to me about any additional messages that I need to receive. And so I am going to go do that, and I will be right back. So I always say this. I always say that it's fascinating. The stones are fascinating. When I think about them, they really, really are. I don't read my stones inverted. So some people do read the inversions. I do not do that. I read them always in the upright position. So when I was thinking about the whole message together and, looking up, I have a book that I've written everything in. I have a web app that I use too if I don't have my book with me, which I don't today. And I'll link that below. I look at the words that they use, as a reminder. And one of the interesting things is, I want to make sure that I bring it up correctly. Ingus, which is this lower stone, which looks different on different stones depending on which kind you have, represents seed, goals, strength, common sense, the hearth, home. And so, like, this has always been in me. Like, and that's what I can't control. I can't control that this is part of my path in this lifetime, in this physical life, to spread light and love, and to try to give information so that people have it so they can do it at home, right? I'm not good at arts and crafts. And one of the reasons I'm not good at arts and crafts is that, I don't know why I'm not good at arts and crafts. I'm just not. It's not my thing. I'm a musician. So, that's what I'm good at. And I'm certainly creative. I'm just not good at arts and crafts. And I don't enjoy them. They often frustrate me. And sometimes it's because I don't understand the directions, and I don't, I know what things are beautiful. I've belonged to several art museums over the course of my life. I know what beautiful art looks like. I know what beautiful people look like. But I don't know how to create that. And so I can appreciate it in others. And so, my strengths are what they are. And I don't need to be good at everything. And, rely on the things that that you're good at. I'm good at teaching. I've been a professor my entire career. And I enjoy it, and I'm fairly good at it, I think. At least the students say that I'm good at it. Let's say it that way. So that's where my gifts are, and those gifts have always been with me, and my ancestors, my tribe across the veil, my whole cotillion of people that are entities on the other side are here to support that which has always been in me. And then the leadership, direction, courage, and moving forward is just taking the gifts that I've been giving and using them wisely. And, I think the Natha stone is one of the most interesting because in addition to it being a menacing stone, it also talks about being self-reliant, right? I often feel like I waste a lot of time watching YouTube videos, for, Scorpio readings and things like that for other readings. And then halfway through, I'm like, this doesn't apply to me at all. This doesn't resonate with me at all. But that's okay, because it's fine. Not everything is going to resonate with you that other people do. What's going to resonate with you is what you do, and you have the power within you to do it. Sometimes good to compare notes. I love watching rituals that other people do. Some resonate with me, some don't. But I'm very interested in other world religions. When I worked in New Jersey, I worked in a school that had a lot of Jewish faculty members. I lived in a Jewish neighborhood right by the synagogue, so I loved learning about Judaism and the different kinds and the different practices and rituals that they did. And, one of the most valuable experiences I've ever gone through is one of my colleagues, unfortunately, her husband passed, and they sat Shiva, and I had never heard of that. And I thought, what a beautiful tradition. And I was just, and I'm still very connected to one of the faculty members. Used to come into my office all the time, and every time she came in, she'd teach me a new Yiddish word. And I really enjoy learning other traditions. I enjoy learning all the ways that humans try to bring light and love into the world, whatever their practice is. One of my best friends in graduate school became Muslim, and she was teaching me what she was learning as she was becoming becoming Muslim, so she could get married to the fellow that she was interested in. So it's fascinating to me. It's fascinating to learn all the traditions, and that love of learning helps us all to be this stone that kind of, like blends together, and like all the different traditions bring light and love, through time. So the Celtic cross is one way to read stones. The second way is 3 Norns, and it's the similar concept, except you're doing past, present, future. And again, you start with a center stone, asking the same question, what should I focus on right now? You can be more specific than that, but... So, this is Perthro, which is the dice cup. This is the stone that we know least about in the Elder Futhark alphabet, and so it often means chance, or I don't know what to focus on, or it could be anything to focus on. And then to the left, we do what brought me to here. And this is Gibo, which means gift, my favorite stone. You have gifts, and you don't really know right now what's, it's up in the air where your gifts are going to be most needed, or you're developing your gifts, and right now you're just shaking the cup to see where they land. And what's the potential outcome? Again, remembering that runes don't predict the future. And we have Algis, which is the elk, and that means strength and courage and spreading out. I always think of it as arms raised out, like sharing. So you have this gift, you're not quite sure how you're using it or where it will be most impactful, and and it will lead to strength. It can lead to strength if you allow the positive energy from the other side to help you develop your gifts. And the third way that I read is just doing a 1 pull. I do this often when I do journal meditations. I'll just pull 1 runestone. What should I think about right now? Like right this minute, Spirit. Thank you for the privilege of being able to do this. And popped right into my hand. This is the one I keep getting. Like no matter what I do, it's like just that connection to Spirit and ancestors. And let me just read the description so that you have, this is the web description. Like I said, I'll link this below. For Athala. Athala says, inheritance. It symbolizes ancestry, possessions, heritage, experience, and value. And that is the reflection stone I'm in right now. I don't know if it's raining outside or if my cats just started my husband's trains downstairs. Sounds like his trains are running. Should probably go check that out. So, Athala, the inheritance stone, the ancestor stone, that has been in my forefront, how to connect with them, how far back I should connect with them. So, like I said, if you watch the channel, I found this, and if I can find it, I'll link it below if I can find it. It's called Ancestral Mathematics, and it kind of talks about how many grandparents, great-grandparents. It only goes back 400 years, and there's so many people. And then you think, if you go back to the beginning of time, how many people had to couple together to get you to where you are today? Spoiler alert, it's a lot of people, right? And a lot of circumstances under which those couplings happened. So, we can tie to our ancestors. So when I'm all done, I either journal or I just close the session. I turn off my music, I blow out my candles. Sometimes I record the sessions online here so that I can share them with you. And sometimes sometimes I record them and I don't post them because they feel very personal between me and Spirit. And sometimes I don't record them at all and it's just between me and Spirit. And that's all right. It's okay. You can do it however it is that resonates with you, because this is a spiritual practice for you. And when it stops bringing you meaning, change it up or do something different. I am wishing you all the very best in light and love. Please, if you have any questions about reading runes, please post them below. I have a whole bunch of links of information from Jackson, from a guy named, I can't remember his name. I'll remember it when I post it. But he's the one whose channel where I got, is his name Algis? I forget what his name is. It's like on the tip of my tongue, but he's where I get a lot of information. He goes through each rune with very specific information about each. Aerith is his name. He goes through information about each of the runes. It's very complete information. Like Jackson, he's a bit arrogant. Just sift through that. Remember, he's delivering knowledge. You can determine whether he's delivering wisdom or not. But the information is good and it's solid. And if you're interested in each of the elements of the Elder Futhark alphabet, I do recommend his work. And I am wishing you all the very best in light and love. Be well. Take care. Bye-bye.